Now, two former pupils of Wilderness School in Sevenoaks are today releasing an augmented reality interactive fairy tale story game for smartphones. Atom and Luna, Quest for Old Mother Redbeard, has been devised by Paul Hartnoll, one of the two brothers who make up the electronic dance act Orbital, and his friend Murray Lachlan Young, BBC Six Music's poet in residence. Well, I asked Murray and Paul today whether they actually liked each other from the start.
Paul's a year older than me, and the year groups really didn't mix very much, apart from the older ones to be violent towards the younger ones. So as the year below, my main thing with Paul's year was just to keep as far away from them as possible.
I had no part in beating Murray up at any point.
But Paul probably looked like he could do, though, I would imagine, because he had very short hair. And that was an automatic sign. There was outside our school a group of kids from all the schools in the area, from Sevenoaks School, from Walthamstow, from all the schools in Tonbridge Tech, Grammar, Judd, all those people in Sevenoaks sort of formed this group of people who are into music and alternative culture. And it was through that, mainly going to gigs and stuff like that Paul and I met each other.
So did you know, Paul, that you just kind of connected? You just had that kind of vibe that you both understood each other's kind of thoughts about music or just love and share and passion of it?
I think that's kind of what happened. I mean, I came from a small village outside of Sevenoaks, and when I discovered what I would call the trendy crowd of Sevenoaks, the people that looked like they were in the film Pretty in Pink, I discovered my people and realised that these were the people I needed to hang out with. And, Murray was part of that set from a sort of psychedelic band kind of group of people, but everybody got on. And, there were all these sort of local bands, and we all used to play at a room at the back of the cinema. And they were amazing, sort of Friday nights with hundreds of kids there, sort of seeing all these local bands. It was a really strong scene. I mean, going back to our school days, I do remember Murray at school being one of those alternative kind of kids. He looked a bit like D'Artagnan, I seem to remember, with long curly hair at school. And I just remember sort of, I'd look at him and think, yeah, that's a mistake if you don't want to get picked on. But he always seemed to be very stoic about it and just put up with it. You know what I mean? Because he knew he was destined for greater things, is what I think,
You both clearly were going to do something in the industry, which you have. And I just wondered, that collaboration between you both then, let's bring it right up to date with Funnelwick Limb. How did that begin for you both to be involved together with the writing and the music?
Well, so we have to go back to the start of lockdown last year, where as BBC Six Music poet in residence, I thought of the idea of, actually, I didn't even think of it as an idea. I just started doing it, was making a response to what was happening in that first lockdown each week. And I did a couple of pieces. The first one was called Working from Home. The second one was called Jogging and Baking. And then for some reason or other, Paul and I got involved in a conversation, or maybe I think I just contacted Paul and said, hey, do you fancy doing a collaboration? And I hadn't asked anyone at BBC Six Music. And we chatted about it and decided what our modus operandi was, which was really trying to just do something for people that was going to keep people's spirits up, really. And so we did that for 14 weeks and came up with a collection of tracks with lyrics by me and music by Paul. And then I was working with Funnelwick Limb and producer Matthew Lindley and artistic director Nina Hajiani. And we decided to do a series of 6 audio casts or podcasts as these magical stories. And I said, well, I've been working with Paul and we work together really well. So do you think, I should ask him? And they were both in favour. And Paul then agreed to do it, which was great. And then from that stemmed another project, which was funded by a group called The Space, which was a collaboration with MBD, who are the augmented stroke digital reality company that we worked with on this. And Paul then agreed to do the music on this as well.
Welcome, traveller. to Tandlesham Forest, where magic paths begin and end. Some will reach their destination, and some will never be seen again. Make haste, for our friends, Atom and Luna, are in great danger, growing fast, and you and only you can save them. Hurry, time is rushing past.
And it is beautiful. The illustrations by Beck Palmer are incredible. As a collaborative effort here, Paul, and musically for you to sort of think, right, I want to create the soundscape of this world with these words that Murray is presenting to me. All of that together, it just must have been such a joy to do.
I love scoring. It's one of my main sort of passions and something that I try to do a lot of. And as Murray says, we'd worked together so well and so fast doing a track a week, normally just a half a week actually. And so it just seemed like a no-brainer to get together and do this, especially during the whole sort of lockdown where I lost all my work for the summer, all the gigs and everything. And so it was a great opportunity to do some really creative scoring. And I've never done a radio play or, a podcast or anything like that. So the sky's your limit with that kind of thing, because the it's all in the mind. So you're feeding, people's minds with images, with music. It's very important, because you've lost the visual element. You've got the storytelling, which is obviously very strong and powerful. It kind of reminded me of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy,
yes,
which is a benchmark of sort of radio play for me in every way. So it was my chance to kind of do something like that and come up with this music that was just painting the pictures. I mean, I can see it all now. If I think about it, it was like a film. I can see exactly all the locations and everything. That's what sort of happened to me, and that was a really lovely thing to do in the lockdown. Just to be that creative on a project with someone that I felt comfortable with, and we, that Murray really sort of left it up to me. We'd listen to it, and he'd maybe, I think out of the whole 6 episodes, there was a couple of comments here and there, just to say, oh, why don't you try that? And, and it always improved it. It was great. It was a good sort of a really good creative process.
And then telling the story in augmented reality, Murray, the ability to sort of take us into these tales of Atom and Luna. And on my phone right now, I've got it here in front of me, and I've been playing with it this morning and enjoying that kind of world that you create in your own space. There's something fantastic about having that storybook come alive. It's the stuff that we 3 as kids would have dreamed of.
Can you imagine?
Oh,
yeah. I mean, there's so many fascinating things about it, but I suppose the key point for us as a production was that we started off working in the live arena with a piece called The Mystery of the Rattlesham Mumps, which was a kind of another wild sort of fantasy project. And we got into virtual reality in that one, and then we also had a book, and we also did an album of it, and so we were kind of in that groove already. And then lockdown came, and we realized, of course, along with, as Paul's just said, all gigs were cancelled. The tour I was doing was finished. All of our live work was done. And we were in a good shape to jump into doing something along these lines. And so the idea for us, as we had a creative meeting, was to say, how can we bring theatre into people's homes? And this then sort of presented itself to us. And as it went on, what we began to realize, which was really exciting, is that people who would never go to the theatre, who couldn't go to the theatre, some people are housebound, some people have very young children or a few young children, and they can't make it out to the theatre. And so this was going to not only deal with our audience that we lost, but it was hopefully going to create an entirely new audience of people. And also the idea about it is to try and make it multi-generational. So you've got, a 4-year-old showing their grandparent how to play, or vice versa. And there are all sorts of combinations of ages that hopefully this can bring people together. And equally as well, the idea of an isolated grandparent with a phone playing it over a Zoom or whatever, with a child somewhere else, but they're both seeing the same thing, and that became really exciting as well.
What could be better than running wild? wild in the woods, jumping over fallen tree trunks, up and down and in between, past the badgers.
Paul, 30 years ago when you first appeared on Top of the Pops and you brought us EDM, could you even imagine that, 30 years on, you would be at the centre of something new as well, that you continue to sort of thrive? Has that always been your thing, to think, well, what can we do with the technology around us?
I have to say, not really. Although I was one of those kids that I did expect a ray gun and a television in my pocket by the year 2000, and a hoverboard. I was bitterly disappointed when all of a sudden we hit 2000 and I wasn't wearing a silver suit. But, these things happen. But we do now have, pretty much Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in our pocket, with a smartphone, which is something I never thought I would see. I've always been open to new ideas and new sort of thoughts. When I had friends that were at art college and things like that, when I was, before Orbital, I used to do the scores to their sort of crazy art films and things like that. So, doing experimental sound work has always been something that I've enjoyed. So the idea of doing this, and the process actually of doing the augmented reality was quite different. We had 6 episodes of Atom and Luna to fall back on to get the themes from, but then adapting them into these little sort of slices that fit into the sort of, this interactive story kind of world is quite a different discipline and approach. It was more like sort of grabbing all those parts and making a Zen garden out of them or something. It was really interesting process, and again, something different. But that always appeals to me. It's like, okay, this isn't something I've done before. Let's see how it works. It's great.
And I guess that's the same, Murray, in terms of getting the rhythmic nature of it all, the sound, the poetry of that kind of mix of storytelling. I mean, it is storytelling for smartphones, a very different world.
Yeah, I mean, we became aware halfway through it. I wish I'd become aware earlier that we were, this is pioneering work. We're doing, this isn't Pokemon Go, but it's sort of Pokemon Go meets Hans Christian Andersen. And the idea of creating a game which is a story that you can play and listen to and actually experience is quite a thing to get your head around. I mean, I've worked writing movie scripts, and that's a very collaborative process. But this is sort of hyper collaborative, because I can say, I want to do this, and then the people at MBD will say, well, no, you can't do that, but you can do this. And then I'm thinking, well, is that them writing the story? Is that me writing the story to begin with? And then and then I realize, of course, it doesn't matter. We're all doing it together. And so it becomes a big collaborative effort, including the producer Matthew, the director Nina, who's sort of trying to hold everything together, then MBD with their technical artistic needs, and me with my storytelling desires, and then you have Paul trying to pull the whole thing together sonically, and that's a lot of moving parts, and so we're absolutely thrilled with the way that it's all come together.
And Paul, while we've got you, we've heard that news about Glastonbury, of course, that has just happened. Your thoughts on that as a band who played as a music collaboration that played at Glastonbury in a big way?
Yeah, well, we were due to play it last year, which would have rolled over into this year, so I've missed it twice now, in recent times. But it's inevitable. I mean, I know so many people who work at Glastonbury, and they pretty much they start work around now, but actually physically setting it up. But they start the work in October. It's almost, it finishes. They have a couple of months off, and then they start work on it again. There was I didn't feel there was any way they were going to get it off the ground this year. Because the thing that actually I didn't see is the fact that no one could get insurance for festivals, and of course you need that in place before you can even start that massive boulder sort of rolling towards it. So that I don't have much hope for much happening this year, apart from maybe smaller events that don't have a big lead time. If we get some news at some point that something can happen, there may be a few ad hoc festivals towards the end of the summer, but something like Glastonbury that's so massive, I didn't have much hope that it was going to happen, so it was no surprise to me when it got cancelled.